If he does before Hamilton gets out, of course, he will be in the lead. So we'll keep our eyes both on Pete Hamilton and also on Baker. 23 out of the original 40 cars.
And here, all right, back down to Chief's Pit. Got a special guest today. We got Roger Wasson sitting in here with Timmy Petty, Mark Petty, and Richie Petty. And we're in the Chief's office today. So this is a special little episode. We always get excited about the 1970 Pete Hamilton win at Daytona. And the special thing about Roger, he worked on them engines. He was there from 70 and 71 in the engine room with the Chief. And so we're excited to have him back. Welcome back, Derek.
Thank you. Pleasure to be back. A little unexpected, but pleasure to be back.
So it's always nice having you.
Well, I'm gonna throw it to Timmy. Timmy's gonna have some questions.
Well, we kind of went over a little bit of the stuff, but let's go back. We got your background last year about this time, and we appreciate that. It was a good episode, and one of our first, by the way. But what I'd like to ask you about, and you told me some of that 426 Hemi stuff, and then when you get through telling me that, I'd like to know more about the wedge-headed stuff that you used to Hemi bottom end. Obviously, you changed pistons and whatnot. But just give us some of that stuff, because that's really interesting to me and our viewers.
Well, before you get started.
Oh, see?
Yep.
We come across, there's a video out there, and it's some neat stuff. It shows you in the engine room. Me and Ram was going through some things.
Oh, yeah?
And I guess it was called Stock Car or something. Anyway, it's a video out there. And I don't know if we can use any of it, but man, we was excited to watch that.
You can run the dyno,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. That's you and Joe Milliken in the dynos with the Chief. So that was kind of cool.
Chief. Yeah.
So anyway, back to Timmy's question before I forget that.
We'll start there. That's a good place to start. So you was telling me that you guys would get back from a race and whether it was a Northern Tour or whatever, and then you would come in.
Yeah, I'd come in. We normally
drive all night.
Yeah, we drive all night. We had no such thing as airplanes back then. I mean, there was, but we didn't have one. We'd be in the truck and it had the sleeper in it and all. And we'd get back anywhere from midnight to 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd go to work the next day anywhere from noon to 1 o'clock. And at that particular time, John Coble was working there, Frank Ruth, Bruce Owens, Joe Milliken, and there was another guy there, and all I knew his name by was Lightning. And
I don't know who that would be to you.
I don't know.
Well, your daddy nicknamed him Lightning because he had to drive stakes beside him to see if he moved.
So he was in a hurry.
So he called him Lightning. So Anyway, I would come back, and between those guys, they would have everything all cleaned up and covered up, and he had me a little assembly room in there, and I would put a Hemi together, or it might be a wedge head. I mean, we built the engines. I put the whole engine together.
So this was on a Monday.
Yes, this would be on a Monday.
After
a race.
Ooh.
Yeah, this would be Monday.
Okay.
And I'd build the engine, assemble it, okay, and then we'd drag it in there to the dyno room, and
who would help you put it on a dyno?
Well, normally Joe Milliken or Frank Ruth or anybody except John Coble mostly did all the head work and everything.
I was going to say that's what he would have done for you when you got back.
Yeah, he had done all the heads.
And Frank would balance the assemblies and prep all that.
And they'd already have all the pistons, sandblasted, and all the rings should already be fit. I had to assemble them, on all the pistons and everything.
So you basically had a kit when you got back Monday?
Basically a kit.
Okay.
Yeah, basically a kit.
To put it in perspective.
Yeah. And then it depended upon where we were going to run with that engine and what camshaft we'd run. And then your dad would tell me, okay, you need, or sometimes you just write it down, you need to dial the camshaft in a certain degree.
Certainly.
Something like that. And then we would put it on the dyno. He run the first, probably, first 3 or 4 weeks or first 3 or 4 times I built an engine. He'd run them, then he'd show me how to run the dyno. So he got to be where I'd assemble the engines and then I'd run the dyno. And by that time it was 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
And we'd take it off and all, and then we'd leave it there, and then I'd go home. And then the next night, or the next day, there'd be another engine. In other words, while we were doing that, they'd bring all the new stuff in for the next day.
So it was sort of assembly line.
It was assembly line,
Gotcha.
Back then, your dad, I'm talking 70, 71, we had 10 engines. We during the winter, between the off season, we'll put it that way, we'd build 10 engines.
And these were all 426 Hemis, or were they wedge headed?
Well, in '70 they were all Hemis.
Right.
Okay.
For two car, well, part time one car and full time one. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. And they built 10 engines, and they'd all be brand new. He normally saved one brand new engine for Martinsville.
Really?
Yeah. One engine would be special.
What was the thought process there?
I never understood that, but they
Home
always.
track.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Home
So is
track.
this a freshman to go to?
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. It's just a.
But it was.
It'd be nice to know the answer to that. wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I know that we had that, and that one engine was always sitting there. The first year, I never understood it until all of a sudden it appeared, at Martinsville. But anyway,
Wow.
after the season, we normally lost maybe 2 engines, at the most 3 engines all year.
Okay.
Blow up or something happen, and so he'd have 7 or 8 of them left, and he would sell. We'd rebuild them, and then he'd sell those to the guys that, the also runs. I don't know what you call them nowadays.
Well, yeah, the people that
Independents.
wasn't, yeah, independents,
Thank you,
Independents.
independents.
Yes,
because they were definitely struggling.
Yeah.
They
We've
do
all
they
done it.
could to get
Yeah.
ahead. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Back then, you all may know this, but back then, people would come in a Hemi fully built by your dad or one of us and everything, sold for $5,000.
Was that pretty big money in 1970?
Yeah.
It sounded
I'll
like
say
it.
it was.
That was
Yeah.
big money as far
No,
as.
As far as I'm concerned, that's big money right
Oh,
there.
no, it is, but I'm,
Yeah, but for a
from
Hemi,
from a race, full fledged race engine, it doesn't sound
Full-fledged
like
race
much.
engine. It had
right, compared to now.
Right.
It had an alternator on it. Didn't have the carburetor. Had the intake manifold. Had the clutch on it. It didn't have the bell housing.
You had to have your own.
You had to have your own. bell
Because
housing.
you guys run that Hemi one was it magnesium?
Yeah.
It was real light.
It was real light. I don't know if it's magnesium.
And then later on, NASCAR made you run them old steel heavy ones, but you never did have to worry about that, did
I
you?
never did.
Okay.
No, I always picked it up. And then the other thing was, and you all still may do it today, but when we mounted the bell housing up, there was a dowel pin that had a slot in it for a screwdriver.
Offset.
Offset.
Yeah. Well,
And
I still have some back there in the bins.
and we had those to make sure that thing was
Indicated in on the center.
perfectly centered.
Well, we did it up until, I don't know, while we raced we had to do it.
Oh, yeah.
That was something
Up
Chief made us
clear
do.
to 2000.
We
Yeah.
used
Yeah,
them
it
on
was-
Chevrolet.
It was 2000s. And
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you'd sit there for 30, 45 minutes and try to figure
Beating that
out.
thing and
Oh,
slot,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Splitting
yeah.
hairs.
Yeah, oh yeah. And it probably didn't make much difference with that, especially when they got the old needle there.
It
And,
must have made a difference, or he wouldn't have been doing it.
yeah,
Well,
I mean,
that's right.
everything was on center.
Yeah, it was all centered up. I just figured that it had a problem before, and that was it.
All right, I don't want to jump off of it, but you guys in '70 was all 426 Hemi, the big behemoth, and I mean that's
That
cool
was
in
wonderful.
itself. Just hearing you talk about it, but in '71, about midway, NASCAR said, "Well, you're going to have to run more plate and weight penalty if you run a 426 Hemi against the rest of the field."
That's right.
So NASCAR and Daddy and you all come up with the which I always heard it was motorhome cylinder heads for a 440. But you told me it was a stage 3, which I didn't even know what that was. So
Well,
fill us in on that. Just start from scratch, please.
okay. All I knew was that the Hemi was going to be gone, and your dad had a special machine shop that he always went to up in High Point. We never knew which one it was, but we knew when he come back.
It was his secret.
It was his secret, and whatever he
Okay.
carried there, it was going to be jewel. And it was a big block of steel that mounted onto a 426 Hemi block. Okay,
So you had to re-transfer holes for the heads.
we had to drill and tap. There was just a little bit difference, and I don't know what the difference was.
Well, and I know you had to weld up a couple places or put some bungs or bosses for it to accept the head, and then you had to close off, because I've seen them done.
Yeah.
And I've done one here, restored it. So
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, but it's interesting you say you had a template for it.
Well, he has a steel template. I think it was a steel plate about 1 inch thick.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'd love to find that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's laying around here somewhere.
I thought I found it out there, but it wasn't, because I told him, I said, that is special, And once again, it came from.
Well, we saved some of that stuff out of the
Oh,
old machine shop. Now, was Curtis right here then? Was
No.
he the machinist?
No.
Who did that machine? Well, you said it was done off campus.
Yeah.
That's when he realized he needed a full-time machinist. Was during that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably
That
was
makes sense.
because just when I left in February of '72 was my last day. Was the last week of '72 February.
It's crazy, but I kind of remember when you kind of got going. It was sort of a sad day, but go ahead.
Really?
Yes.
Your mama blessed me out. Blessed
For
her
leaving?
heart. Oh my God.
Well,
She give me-
let's just leave it on the back burner. Let's talk about the wedge heads again.
Anyway, he brought that in. We put that on. Now, all I understood they were Type 3 cylinder heads. Now that's what we were using in '71.
Okay.
And I think they came off a 413. I think a 413 used to have a Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3. And I think it all had to do with drag racing.
Okay. Well, didn't you say that they still took the ports out? You had to port and polish them by hand with a grinder.
Yeah, because these came in, and I don't know how they got them. They were all used heads. They wasn't brand new heads.
So, but you still had to.
Yeah, you did the polishing and port and Bruce Owens.
Yeah, there was a lot of junkyard digging back then.
Yeah,
Oh,
and you had. We also had to water test them. I don't know.
Pressure test.
Pressure
Yeah,
test.
we still do that. Yeah.
Okay, we did that and everything, and some of the old ones they just didn't work.
Didn't cut the mustard.
They did not cut the mustard at all.
Cool.
And they checked that first before they spent all the time on it, and then we've hooked it up and everything, and it worked great. We changed the pistons. Pistons were different.
Do you recall how much they had to remove? I mean, because what I remember is they took them out to the max wedge spec almost because some of that stuff bolted on. Is that correct, or
Yeah.
am I just thinking?
Yeah, no,
Cool. That's
Yeah.
good to know. Good information.
yeah.
Now, dude, you go back. Let's go back to '72. You said you left in February. Was that before Daytona or after?
That was after Daytona.
Okay.
I would say probably one of the highlights of my time and everything was I couldn't go. Once I give Chief a notice, I asked my wife to marry me the New Year's Eve. I came back the next day and asked Chief. I give him a 2-month notice. So he's going to be
A 2-month?
2-month notice.
Well, the reason why I was questioning
That's fair
that,
enough.
because
Well-
when you were here in '70, won the Daytona 500. '71 won the Daytona 500. So I didn't know if you left before '72. I was going to say you're the jinx because that's why he lost, but you was
Yeah.
here for that.
Well, I wasn't there, but he left me here, and everybody else was there. John
luck,
Coble
Charlie.
wouldn't work on Sundays, and I don't blame him. That was him. So I was assembling an engine and all working, and I was listening to the Daytona 500 on the radio,
Okay.
and I thought it doesn't get any better than this.
Well,
It doesn't get any better.
I'm gonna take your attention to Timmy here. I know y'all probably wondering what he's got around his neck.
We're going to have a picture of it.
This
Yeah.
is the show and tell for today. But this was '71 from Daytona. Richard
you were a
wearing
part
this-
of it, and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Richard wore this in the Victory Circle. This was part of the sponsorship to the Orange Grove.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
And all the winners would wear the oranges.
See, there we got some prizes all
But
around.
these,
Boy,
these
you
are
do.
these are from '71, and this one Richard Petty won.
Oh my,
And then so it's kind of neat for you because, like I said, you was part of that win.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so on going back to motor stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm
No,
just.
no, it's fine.
I got
Just
him here.
before I forgot about the oranges.
Sure.
but I
Yeah. I'm
wanted to
glad
make
you
sure.
did because I look ridiculous. Let's go.